CM 365, all about Carnatic music.
The raga concept has developed and blossomed over several years, and we see that every ragam has got its own distinct structure and character. We can study each ragam actually with the following points of consideration. That is, based on what kind of a nature the ragam has, based on that we can classify every ragam. Let's look at into a few modes of classification. The first thing is, of course, whether the ragam is a Melagartha or not. That is, if we have a ragam like Kanakangi or Maya Malagala or Shankarabharanam, we know that they are all Melagartha ragas. So once we know that they are a Melagartha ragam, what is the number in the Bhuta Sankhya? For example, Kanakangi is the first Melam, Maya Malagala is the 15th Melam, and Shankarabharanam 29th, and so on. Then we can also try to determine what kind of swarasthanas that particular mela has. The next point is, of course, about whether it's a Vivadi ragam or not. And there are some major ragams we see, even in the Melagarthas, which were born much before even the Melagartha scheme was conceived. For example, if you take ragams like Todi, Shankarabharanam, and Kalyani, we see that they were there in existence much before the Melagartha scheme. And also we see that how these ragams, in order to be fitted into the Melagartha scheme through the Bhuta Sankhya, they were given prefixes. So Todi became Hanumat Todi, Kalyani became Mecha Kalyani, Shankarabharanam became Dhira Shankarabharanam, and so on. Now, in the case of Janya ragas, we can see what are the classifications possible, that whether they are Audava, that is having 5 notes, Shadava, or having 6 notes, or sometimes we see that they may be a combination of both, like Bilahari, which is Audava Sampurna combination, or sometimes, for example, of Audava, we can give Mohanam, Hindolam, Shuddha Danyasi, and many more ragams like this we can have in this category of Audava. Then coming to the concept of whether it's a Upanga raga or a Bhashanga raga. So in the Bhashanga raga again, we see what are the Bhashanga swaras. How many swaras are Bhashanga in that particular ragam? Number of Anya swaras, that is, we can see that. And then also we can see whether this Bhashanga note is an integral part of the Arohana, Avarohana, or does it come occasionally into the ragam. For example, in Bhairavi, we see that the Bhashanga note is integral to the Arohana, Avarohana itself. Whereas in a ragam like Kambodhi, we see that the Bhashanga note is not a part of the Arohana, Avarohana, but then it occurs in certain specific phrases. And we also can see about whether it has a range or octaves, Tristhai, that is whether it can operate in the Mandya, Madra, and Tarasthai, or whether it has a limited range like Nadanama Kriya, Navaroj, Punnagavarali, Kuranji, and so on. Then also about whether it's a Karnataka Shuddha ragam like Bhairavi, or a Deshya ragam like, for example, Behag, Kapi, etc. Then whether it is a Murchana Pradhana ragam like Todi, or Prayoga Pradhana ragam, that is phrase-oriented ragams like Atana or Sahana, Ananda Bhairavi, and so on. And then also the concept of whether it is a Purva Pradhana raga or it is a Uttaranga Pradhana raga, Purvanga Pradhana raga or Uttaranga Pradhana raga. Purvanga Pradhana means that the heart of the ragam, the key phrase of the ragam lies in the Purvanga portion. Example could be given here as like Dvajavanti, or Uttaranga Pradhana, we could give the example of Atana. Then the Vadi, Samvadi, Anuvadi, Vivadi, Graha notes, Nyasa notes, Amsa notes. Based on this also we can try to analyze a particular ragam. Then the next aspect is the Alpatva, the Bahutva, or the Durbala Swara in the ragam. That is, which notes are used frequently in the ragam, which are used sparingly, and which are the weak notes in that particular ragam. The other points of raga classification, the points to be taken are like the Shruti value of the notes involved in that ragam. For example, in Gaula we have the Eka Shruti Rishabha, or we have the Chuta Panchama Madhyama in Varali. So, what is the kind of the note, the variety of the note that is taken in terms of its Shruti value, that could also be examined. Then we also see the Muktanga Kampita Ragam like Thodi, Ardha Kampita Ragam like for example Malaya Marutam, or Kampa Vihina like we see for example Kadana Kutuhulam. And then, of course, though we don't have the time theory specifically as much as like in the Hindustani music, certain ragams are attributed to certain times of the day. Like, for example, we associate Bhupalam, Bauli, and all to the morning part of our day. And then also about the rasa aspect. Some ragas are supposed to evoke Veera rasa like Athana, or Karuna rasa like Sahana, or Vatsalya rasam like Kapi, and so on. And then there are also many things to be studied from the historical perspective of a ragam. We also can study whether the ragam is one which has got a vast scope or one which offers limited scope. And finally, of course, whether that particular ragam permits or allows for all kinds of manodharma to be performed. So, thus we see that every ragam, though we say that this is a particular ragam by name, there are so many aspects of the lakshana that we can examine, and this makes indeed for an interesting study.
CM 365, all about Carnatic music.